This is Quantitative Techniques in Management, MAN-811, Module 1, Study Session 2, Essential Features of the Quantitative Techniques Approach. The expected duration of this study session is 1 week. Introduction. There are certain features that clearly indicate that quantitative techniques have been used in making a decision, and their absence in a decision-making process indicates that a subjective approach was adopted. In this study session, you will come to terms with the essential and unique features of decisions made on the basis of quantitative techniques. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to identify and discuss the approaches to quantitative techniques, ascertain the basic feature of each of the approaches, and apply quantitative techniques approaches to solving business problems. Essential features of the quantitative techniques approach. The essential features of quantitative techniques which you ought to get acquainted with are as follows. 1. The scientific approach. 2. The use of models. 3. The systems approach. 4. Interdisciplinary approach. 5. Recognition of risk and uncertainty. And 6. Aids management in decision making. The scientific approach. When faced with a problem, it is required that the problem should be studied properly and all relevant information pertaining to the problem gathered and analyzed before a decision is taken. This makes reference to the scientific approach in the use of quantitative techniques. Quantitative techniques adopt the scientific approach to decision-making in dealing with problems. The scientific approach calls for objectivity rather than subjectivity in making decisions. A detailed explanation of the scientific approach to decision-making has been given previously. The use of models. In the use of models, what quantitative techniques does is to study the problem situation and extract all the relevant variables that impact on the problem, and then establish the nature of the relationship existing among the variables. The relationship so established is called a model. By definition, a model is a simplified representation of an empirical situation. By definition, a model is a simplified representation of an empirical situation. Although there are various other types of models, iconic, analog, simulation, quantitative techniques make use of mainly mathematical models. A mathematical equation which expresses the nature of the relationship between or among various variables is a model. The use of models is at the core of quantitative techniques. This is then expressed in the form of a mathematical equation or model. This model is in turn used to study and analyze the real-life problem for the purpose of drawing inferences or conclusions that will aid management in decision-making. Systems approach. The systems approach to the management of organizations is among the newest in the development of management. The systems approach realizes the fact that an organization is made up of different interrelated components which function together in order to achieve a common objective, and also that whatever happens in one component is bound to affect the others. This approach helps management to avoid sub-optimization and forces it to take a holistic view of an organization's problems. The systems approach to organizations' problems by quantitative techniques lead us to another essential feature of quantitative techniques. Interdisciplinary approach. Since business organizations are made up of different components, management, marketing. Since business organizations are made up of different components, including management, marketing, finance, product, research, and development, with each component representing an area of specialization, it becomes necessary that when a problem arises in any part of the organization, experts or specialists in all the relevant disciplines will be called in to ensure that the problem is thoroughly understood and also that the ramifications of whatever decisions that are taken on the various aspects of the organization's operations are known early enough. Recognition of risks and uncertainty. Decisions are made for the future and also entails forecast of future activities. The behavior of the key decision variables in the future cannot be estimated with certainty. In other words, the future in which organizations' decisions will be implemented is fraught with risks and uncertainties. Although quantity techniques cannot totally eliminate these risks, it does make provisions for them through the use of profitability estimates and sensitivity analysis. Sensitivity analysis helps the decision maker to know how this decision will be affected by changes in the value of the relevant decision variables. Where a slight change in the value of the decision variables leads to a significant change in the optimal solutions of a decision, such a solution is said to be very sensitive. However, if a significant change in the decision variable leaves the optimal solution practically unaffected, then the solution is said to be insensitive. When a solution proves to be very sensitive, the problem needs to be revisited and reevaluated in order to arrive at a less sensitive alternate solution. Aids management in decision making. The prime objective of quantitative techniques is to provide management with the relevant information that will improve the quantity of its decision, that will improve the quality of its decisions. It does not seek to take managerial decisions on its own. In most decisions, there are also qualitative factors that need to be considered. Quantitative techniques is not equipped to deal with such qualitative factors, and as such, it cannot take managerial decisions alone. The decision maker considers these qualitative factors and uses his judgment to arrive at the final decision. Let us summarize this session. From the foregoing units, you were presented with the essential features of quantitative techniques by identifying and discussing the approaches that characterize quantitative techniques. Self-assessment questions. Question 1. What are the features that characterize the use of quantitative techniques in decision making? Question 2. Identify and discuss the approaches to quantitative techniques. Question 3. Ascertain the basic feature of each of the approaches. Question 4. Apply quantitative techniques approaches to solving business problems. You have come to the end of study session 2.